Knowing this near universal pattern helps to assess new brands and existing ones.
What don't marketers know?
Quite a lot. Marketers largely live in an anything-goes world where the latest fashion or fad drives an awful lot of practice.
Segmentation is the recognition and capture of everyone with equal satisfaction.
This is the Zac Anesbury Show.
Welcome. On today's podcast, we have Karina Whiteford. Karina is the head of marketing at the Collingwood Football Club, and she has an exceptionally high work ethic. Her passion for sports marketing is like you would not believe, and before landing that role, she had a diverse but deliberate strategy of seeking a variety of jobs that cleverly built her CV. Now, Karina, being a young female, shares her tips on being successful, but these will resonate with everyone regardless of their gender. She's not shy about seeking mentors and the role that they've had in shaping her career. Now, with a passion like hers, she can sometimes struggle for a work-life balance, like we all can, but she proactively sought advice about this and she shares it with us today. Karina is a wonderfully warm person, and I think you'll get a sense of her true nature just by listening to her voice and her intelligence from her words. But without further ado, Karina Whiteford. And we are live by the looks of it. So welcome to the podcast, Karina.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking time out of your day. It's for those listening, it's about 6:40 in Melbourne right now. So Karina's just finished work and I've just flown into Melbourne. And this is the strangest location I've ever recorded a podcast. Actually sitting here just randomly in a hotel.
It's the only location I've recorded one, so there you go.
Yeah, usually it's some sort of boardroom at a university or my office is generally where we're at. So this is a bit strange and took a little bit of time because we had to wait for a second chair, but Novotel did a good job.
Good supply, yeah.
Got us a chair eventually. Did you just want to give everyone a bit of an overview as to who you are and what your current role is?
Yeah, so my name is Karina Whiteford and I'm the head of marketing for Collingwood Football Club. That's it. That's who I am.
There's a little bit more to it than that.
I don't know. What else do you want to know?
So you're not originally from Melbourne, are you?
No. I moved to Melbourne for this role probably about 10 or 11 months ago.
Oh, wow. So you're pretty new here then.
Yeah,
How are you
very
settling
fresh.
in Melbourne?
Very easily.
Yeah.
It's very similar to Adelaide, and I'm living in a very similar neighbourhood to what I was in Adelaide, so I feel like it's feeling very comfortable, very familiar.
Yeah, I find a lot of people who grew up in Adelaide and then moved to Melbourne actually seem to assimilate quite easily.
Yeah.
I always feel like Melbourne has like just an Adelaide feel, but it's just bigger.
Yeah.
More people,
Everything's
more rain.
just larger. Yeah. Yeah, more unpredictability on the rain. Yeah.
More
Yeah.
unpredictable, but it just seems like, I don't know, and it's such a nice place to be.
Yeah.
Such an easy
Lots
place to
of
live.
things going on. Yeah. Very, very easy to live here.
Yeah, we're starting to get a little bit better though. Adelaide, we've got a lot more laneway bars and a lot more cafes and more events and stuff.
Yeah, I think that the food culture there is developing astronomically.
Yes.
Like there seems to be a lot more, and I think Tasting Australia and events like that sort of helped that. But yeah, it's becoming a little bit of a foodie location, I think, in my opinion anyway.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a whole host of nice restaurants like the Peel Street. I haven't been to that one yet, but I've been to Golden Boy and Africola.
Peel Street's my favourite, actually. Yeah, Peel Street.
I was going to go earlier in the year, but they closed over the Christmas break, so...
I think the last time I went there, I did the Feed Me option and couldn't remember what was on the menu, but everything was just divine. Like it was an experience in itself, so you must go.
I'll definitely go next time. So you were born in Adelaide and grew up there? Or?
Yes, born and bred. My mum is originally from England, so she moved here when she was really young. And my dad is born and bred Australian. So, yeah, grew up in Adelaide, been there my whole life until 11 months ago. So very, very new to me and to the family even. No one's really sort of ventured outside of South Australia. So, yeah, flown the nest.
So your current role, so you're the head of marketing for the Collingwood Football Club, which I think is extremely impressive given you've only just turned 30. Because you have one of the biggest membership bases, right?
Yes, it has, and the history of it has been that it's been the largest. It's not something that we sort of shout from the rooftops. But yeah, certainly it's we have a large community, and we certainly are focused on growing that in different ways. And yeah, It's all good things.
I mean, it's a great club. It's no Adelaide Football Club, but it's a great club.
A little bit of bias coming in from you, yes.
Yeah, definitely. With the season coming up, so I'll actually be in New York next month, so I'm going to miss the opening round against Sydney. But hopefully that's the only game I miss this season. But I love it. Every fortnight going to the football and really getting involved in the atmosphere of being at the game is something a bit different to being at home, I think.
Yeah,
It's
and
quite
certainly in
special.
South Australia, football is, yes, I think much more intense
Yeah.
with the two-team town sort of vibe. And I know that WA has the same sort of, with their derby as well, very much intensifies around the state. So, yeah.
So how did you find yourself in that role?
You want the long version or the short version?
Definitely the long version.
I think, so I was working in football at Sandford, so at the league level, so obviously South Australian State League, working there and really enjoying the sport aspect of that. Have always, well, not always, but knew that I was meant to work in sport. And so was really enjoying it, really loving it, was probably just ready for another challenge. And I knew when I decided that I wanted to work in sport, and that's where I wanted to flex my marketing muscle, that I would eventually have to consider moving to Melbourne. And so the time felt right. I said to myself, okay, I think I'm ready for a new challenge. If something pops up at the AFL or at an AFL club in Melbourne in the next week, I'm going to apply for it. And the next week, the role at Collingwood came up in my job search, and that seemed pretty universal in terms of symbols. So definitely just took that, and yeah, it all sort of worked out in my favour. So
Isn't it crazy? You're literally like in the next week if something pops up,
Yeah.
the universe sends a message to you.
And I acknowledged that it wouldn't be a quick turnaround and that the role might not be right, and you just don't know what it's like in Melbourne, especially being like a sports central state. But I just had acknowledged that I'm always craving to learn more and for new challenges, and I just accepted that I was ready for that. And yeah, the whole universal, put it out what you want and it will come to you sort of really worked quite effectively at that point. So within the next week it popped up and then I'm here.
Okay, so sport is more your passion? So how'd you find yourself in marketing then?
To be honest, I don't actually know.
Yeah.
In high school, I knew that I was very driven and motivated, and I knew I wanted to be successful.
That doesn't come across at all.
I hope you're being sarcastic. I'm terrible at picking that up. So I knew I wanted to be successful. I had all this ambition around what kind of life I wanted to lead, that I knew I wanted to be responsible for a lot of big projects. Where and how I did that sort of was not clear on. And originally I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, which looking back on, I think was a terrible decision. And then, sort of spoke to the career counsellor at school and sort of said, this is what I'm thinking. I like being creative and don't love science, which you're going to probably grill me on later. And then they sort of said, well, have you considered marketing? And here's some courses at Uni SA that might suit you. And then my scores came in, I got in and loved it.
Oh, awesome.
So it was kind of a bit of luck.
So were you doing like accounting or business studies or any of those sorts of...
I was doing all of the things that now looking back on are vital to what I do now. I was doing business studies, English studies, economics, biology, so not that one that wasn't really entirely relevant. And there was certainly another one that I cannot remember for the life of me. But I was doing a lot of the business core subjects. And English I loved, and I still love it now. Copywriting is one of my favourite things to do. So
Really? Oh, that's some stuff you can copyright.
I'd love to do it.
So, okay, I think, because in a similar regard, right? So in year 11 and year 12, I realised I didn't want to do like the traditional sciences, like the physics, the chemistry, the biology. I like to do things that I'm good at, and I'm not good at those things. So I very quickly realised after year 10 and getting a C for some of those things, I'm like, I think I'll play to my strengths. I love science, but I don't like those sciences. So I like the scientific discipline itself and the way it looks at the world.
It's funny you say that because I remember actually prior to the career counselling session, I went and saw just one of the school counsellors because I got a B in physics. And I thought that was the end of my schooling career. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. That was probably year 10 or 11, so it wasn't at the year 12 sort of standard. But I remember just thinking the end of the world because I was not good at something, and that was probably the first time that I had to try hard. So that was a good life lesson.
Okay. High achiever. Makes sense. Definitely makes sense. Yeah, and so I just felt like, and you probably felt the same way, that it really helped with an undergraduate business degree, right? Because you have to do all of those subjects, and sort of, the first 2 or 3 weeks came relatively easy because you already knew those base, deficits and credits and debits and credits and all that sort of stuff. So you did your undergraduate degree at UniSA?
Yes.
Yeah. Which degree did you do?
I did the Bachelor of Marketing and Communications.
Okay, yeah.
Which was new at that point. I think that was the first or second year that they'd run that particular degree where they had put in a lot of the communication subjects into the Bachelor of Management Marketing. I think it was at that point. Yeah. Because they found a lot of people choosing those electives. So they sort of built a custom degree. I don't know if it's still around.
I think that one's still around. The other one's Bachelor of Business Management or something like that.
Yeah.
Bachelor of Business Marketing.
Yeah. So I did a lot more of the communication subjects than a lot of the colleagues I've worked with had. They did a lot more of the management marketing mixes. So, yeah.
And how did you find that course?
You loved it.
Yeah?
Yeah. I don't know what it is about communication, and even just as an operational style, I really thrive on problem solving is probably a core strength of mine, but communication I just really enjoy. I don't know whether it's the language or the interaction or the interpersonal part of it, but yeah, being able to write something that's meaningful and really connect with someone is the most rewarding feeling, I think. Okay. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the degree.
Yeah, so that degree was around when I did my undergraduate as well. Yeah. I did the other program, right? The Bachelor of Management Marketing.
Yes.
That's what I ended up going with, which was a little bit more, like you said, focused on those management courses. I tried to do a little bit of like the entrepreneurial sort of stuff as well.
Yeah.
Because I've always liked the idea of creating something from nothing and then that having a further economic impact and creating wealth for not just myself, but people who would end up working for something.
Yeah.
And I think, entrepreneurialism is great for the world. Okay, so you like the copywriting sort of side of things. And has that helped you with your career?
I think so. I think it's actually interesting reflecting on sort of my career prior to now. It's interesting how you think that, and this is my view on it, is that you think your skills lie in what you contribute to a business, and I actually think your skill lies in how you operate. So I wouldn't say I'm an exceptional marketer or an exceptional brand manager or anything, but I would say I am talented at creative problem solving and the application of that in a marketing and brand context. So I think... I've forgotten what your original question was.
It doesn't even matter what my original question was.
So the communication side of it, I think, has always been, how do I inspire or empower the person reading this on the other end to believe it, or to be emotively connected to this, or to want to, or be compelled to take that action. So, saying buy this bottle of water, it's $1, versus this water is super hydrating and it will make you feel amazing because you feel replenished and rehydrated and like you can tackle the world. Completely two different messages and completely two different outcomes. And I really like that. You can't there's no sort of systematic way of doing it.
That's fascinating. So did that shape your early career as well? Like, so you finished your undergraduate program in 2012? Roughly?
Yes. Yep. I would have graduated... start of 2012. So I finished subjects in 2011 when you were my final tutor of IMT, Integrated Marketing Techniques, whatever it was called.
That was a fun course. It's still around.
It's really good, actually. Super, applicable. Yeah. I sort of still think about it now and think it was a really good subject. So graduated in 2012 and I was working part-time throughout the final couple of years of my degree. So I was studying part-time as well. I don't think at that point I had realised that I enjoyed the problem solving or that I that was my skill set. I just knew that I enjoyed what I studied and I couldn't wait to actually be doing it as my job. So then when you graduate, you've got all these like amazing ideas of all the things you want to be doing, but then you've just got to find the place that wants you to do it for them, which is notoriously hard for a graduate.
Yeah, very hard.
Yeah, super hard. And especially when there's so many skilled people out there trying to cut their teeth in.
And we operate on a global scale now.
Exactly right. And yeah, so I just really focused on finding an entry point, and that's sort of, I think, the path that my career took me made me realise that the consistent thing throughout all my jobs and roles that I had was actually that I was good at problem solving rather than any particular aspect of my job. So,
right. So what was your first break then into industry? Because you did mention it can be quite difficult for people to...
Yeah, and I think it's really difficult to, I guess, convey your skill level without having anything to prove it. And I think that certainly, looking at it now, if I were to be recruiting for someone, it is hard to trust someone without having any proof points, and you sort of have to go on a lot of different facets other than skills and experience, I guess. So I sort of just looked at a whole different types, all different industries, all different roles. Wasn't too selective. I sort of just understood that I would find the industry I would be right for eventually, and just wanted to get my foot in the door with some marketing experience. So ended up working in property retail, getting a marketing assistant job, which is shopping centres. So working on behalf of investors to, of course, increase sales attendance, or not sales attendance, that's now, traffic, retail traffic and cumulative sales. So that was probably a good entrance point into understanding revenue as well as a marketer. So that really shaped that aspect of,
And where did you move from there? Because I think you were at South Australian Tourism Commission for a bit.
Yes. So I was, after I worked with RepPro, they escalated me as the business grew. I grew with it, which was fantastic. And that really helped me grow as well, and really gave me a lot of autonomy in how I grew. And then moved to, South Australian Tourism Commission, where I worked as a marketing exec for the Clipsal 500 Adelaide, as it was known then.
Yeah, it's changed now, like Superloop or something.
Yeah, Superloop 500 Adelaide, yes. Got to get the sponsors right. And that was when I realised that sport was exactly where I wanted to work.
Okay, that was your aha moment.
It was my aha moment.
Sports
it was
marketing.
And motorsport as well. Who would have thought? It was certainly not. If someone had asked me straight out of uni, I would not have said motorsport would be the turning point. But just the pace at which everything moved. I've always really thrived under pressure. I mean, everyone does their assignments for uni at the last minute, but I think that was almost a strength of mine. I randomly would get good marks. So I've always sort of known that I would be good in a pressure environment. But then actually realising it and just being exposed to an event that is national, has so many different strategic objectives and challenges as well. So motorsport is not something that is seen as glamorous or not something that you would necessarily associate growth with. So it had its own sort of brand challenges that we had to overcome as well. So I just loved that role working there, the challenges, the wins, everything, and the energy that just comes from a team that unites to just get so much work done in a small amount of time. I don't know. I'm smiling thinking about it just because I thrive off that energy. But yeah, that was when I was like, yep, this is what I want to be doing. This is the kind of environment I want to be operating in.
Does anything sort of come to mind that there was like particular challenges during that event, organising it, that your skills really complemented?
I think going back to that problem solving thing, this is probably when I started to realise that was what I enjoyed. And I started to realise that a job that sort of gave me tick boxes, this is your job, this is what you need to do, was never going to work for me.
Yep.
I needed something a bit more greenfields where I could really make my mark, really think about things, really absorb information. Relationship building became a really imperative part of my role, particularly at the 500. So in the sense that there were so many different things happening, and we were the communication point to fans, both existing and new, and all of the challenges we were trying to overcome. That was, I don't know, like that probably was when I realised that I really liked getting all these different inputs and trying to manufacture them into a really realisable and positive, impactful outcome.
Yeah.
So long-winded way of saying it, but yeah, that was when I started to realise that. So.
Oh, that's awesome. So you would have had a lot of different stakeholders for that sort of
Oh,
event.
yeah.
Though.
Oh, yeah.
It would have been your sponsors, would have been all of the teams, it would have been the drivers.
Yep.
Then you would have had to coordinate with the rest of the industry, like hotels, people who cater, for example, concerts, the Clipsal and our Super Looper.
Yeah.
That's part of the big appeal is the
yeah.
concerts at the end of the night. Seems like a lot. So how did you go about coordinating all of this?
Well, I think I sort of went into the role thinking this is the role that I'm going to get the best networking opportunities from.
Okay.
So that was a big, so the relationship part of my role was personally really important. I really sort of focused on those things and made them a priority. So we had so many stakeholders involved, and there was 3 people in the marketing team. So there was my marketing manager and a marketing assistant. And my role essentially was to manage the below the line activity. So there was multiple different agencies involved, like PR, social media, everything. So it was about managing those relationships on behalf of us as well. They were having to execute. And then managing, of course, the relationship with Supercars, who then had the drivers, and there was just so many different connections going on. It did feel a bit chaotic at times, especially in the lead up to the event, but I think I was just patient and I focused on the person in terms of building that relationship with those stakeholders to get more information and just to build trust in that two-way communication as well.
Yeah. Is there any particular people that you, or any particular event that occurred during that time where you're like, all right, there was a problem here and I managed to find a solution for it?
My favourite one is, and I tell this story all the time because it's like, I love Brian Gleason, who is he's sort of the brains behind all the operation, and he has so much IP and just a fantastic person to work with and learn from. And of course, the concert series, as you said, is one of the most exciting and impactful part of the event. And of course, there comes with that a lot of sensitivities around confidentiality and you have to be considerate about, what that involves. And I remember one time needing to capture, and obviously there's broadcast rights and things like that as well. And I knew that we wanted to content capture part of the concert for the purposes of content banking for the future, like for future years. And there was obviously broadcast and like certain arrangements that we had to be conscientious of. And I just remember it was like the first time I had really lived and breathed the whole bring me solutions, not a problem. And so I remember going to Brian, and because he's such a I don't know, like important and very intelligent man, just feeling so nervous and going, I don't know how I'm going to get this over the line. I know I need to capture this footage, and I know there's so many legal things that he deals with. I don't want to be annoying, or I don't want to, just come across like I'm not thinking about his considerations. And I remember going to him and saying, I've got a couple of options about how we might be able to capture this. I've thought about a few of these different things that I'm sure you need to worry about. And he was just like, oh, yeah, okay, no worries, do that one. And I remember just walking away and wanting to high five just about everyone in the whole building because I was just thinking like, I don't like it. These things are notoriously hard to work with, especially because you've got artist management, you've got like contracts, you've got everything going on. And I just thought I had scored the biggest win of the whole year in getting this solution across the line. And yeah, like he probably wouldn't even remember it because he's just like, that's not even a thing.
But for you,
it was like this really big moment of I can sort of work with and negotiate. This is like a really powerful tool to negotiate with people that have so much going on, busy, like really high level senior leaders. and I can converse with them, and I can have this relationship with them if I figure out what they need from me. So that was a big one.
I kind of picture you, walking along this slow motion movie.
It felt slow motion.
Scene, and you're just like high-fiving everyone down the hall. There's popcorn going everywhere.
Oh, it would have been two different looks. I swear if it was a movie, the walking towards BG, it would have been like hands are shaking, papers rattling in my hands, a bead of sweat coming down my face, and then walking back, slow motion skipping, and just throwing the papers in the air and going, I've got this. It was just, I don't know why it feels fundamental, but I think that was just a big win. I was like, oh, great, I can make things work.
Yeah. So it changed your mindset then?
Absolutely it did. And I think, I really must credit my time at the tourism SATC because I had a lot of growth in that role, and I think it was not necessarily because the role was outside of my depth or anything like that, but just the nature of the roles and the people I worked with. I really found that I just learned so much about myself as a professional as well as a person, and I think that moment in time just shifted my mindset to go, I can be the puzzle piece that fits everyone else.
Yeah.
I've just got to figure out what other people need from me and work myself around that. And again, that's that problem solving thing that keeps coming through.
Yeah.
It's like the theme of who I am is that I go, okay, this person's priority is keeping contracts confidential, making sure that management's happy, that we're not contravening any broadcast rights or any other agreements. So if I'm considering that on behalf of them when I factor in my solution, then it's going to be much easier to get the solution approved.
Yeah.
So, and that's certainly how I operate today, is I almost never, and I'm sure my current boss would maybe think of sometimes, where I don't take problems anymore. I try to find a solution first. Just because of that feeling I had, and I keep getting it now, which is nice. So.
Yeah, and I think that's actually awesome advice as well, and it's something I picked up during my PhD. So and I think a lot of HDR students or higher degree by research students pick this up slowly as well, and I try to teach this to my students, which is, if you're having a problem with your research or you're having a problem with understanding it, mostly it's to do with their research.
Yep.
Come to me or go to one of your other supervisors with 2 or 3 different options. Tell them what the problem is and show them that you've thought about it all by yourself and that you're a big boy or a big girl and that the solution could be 1, 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then also have the balls to say, I think we should go with 2 because of A, B, C.
Yeah.
Because their job, they haven't thought about your problem. They have their own problems.
Exactly right. And
so
you're taking the thinking out and you're sort of just going, choose an option. It's like multiple choice.
Yes.
And there's a reason why those sayings are so, so popular and so common. Is because they're true. And it seems so cliche to say, don't bring me a problem, bring me a solution. But genuinely, you will get so much further if you do that.
Yeah.
And especially if you even think about if this one says, if the one you're recommending gets a no, what's the next workaround? Do you have an alternative to that one that still gets you what you need, but also appeases what the other person is trying to either protect, control, manage, or what their best interest is as well. So
I think it works on both fronts. I think the person who goes, said that highlights there's a problem and had thought about the solution, they grow a lot because they've thought about it.
Absolutely.
And even if their solution's not the right one, because they maybe don't have the experience or the other knowledge that the person they're going to has, at least they've gone through this problem solving in their own head.
Absolutely.
And then they will learn a lot more from when they're given kind of more of the right answer, I suppose.
Yeah.
And from the other person, they can actually then quickly, I'm going to spend 5-10 minutes with this person. I know what their problem is. Here are the potential solutions. I can see how they got to that one, but they don't know maybe this background knowledge. So
Absolutely.
I'm going to steer them towards option 1.
Yeah.
And I find I got a lot better reception from even now, even because I don't have thesis supervisors, but you still have supervisors in your role. If you go to them with just a problem, you're not going to get received very well. And you also And
it's also a little bit of their role might not necessarily be to worry about the things that you need to worry about. So
Exactly.
oftentimes their solution might not even be the most suitable or the best out of all scenarios, because their role is actually different from yours, and their considerations and the information they have is actually very different from you. And certainly in an organisation, you know, just thinking about a commercial team versus a marketing team, your objectives are different, your KPIs are different. So of course the way that you think and the things that you consider are going to be different. So that preemptive solution-based process, I think, is so valuable.
Oh, 100% agree. So you have also been a project director at Nation Creative?
Yeah, so
I don't know what that actually means. So
yeah,
fill me
okay.
in.
This I went through a little bit of a I guess it was realizing that sport was where I wanted to work, and my role at SATC, so Tourism Commission, was a maternity leave contract. So
Okay.
it actually wasn't permanent ongoing. So it was a bit of a risk jumping from what I had in the retail property area, and sort of that's really stability and everything, and trying something totally new that I wasn't sure I was going to like and was only going to be doing for 18 months or however long it ended up being. So when the end of my contract came up, I sort of had to have a real sort of mirror moment of looking at myself and going, what do I want? What am I trying to do? And in that moment, I knew that I was never going to be doing my best work and making the biggest impact in an industry I wasn't passionate about.
Okay.
So I took a really, really big risk and decided that I wasn't going to apply for any old job just for the sake of making money or whatever it might have been. I was going to take the risk and just freelance until the right job came up. And it so happened that through a very valuable friend of mine, she introduced me to Greg Kanagi, who is the CEO of Nation Creative. And he just needed a little bit of help for 6 or 7 months or something like that, just in terms of operationally, the agency was going through a little bit of change. I love helping people. So I sort of had an initial chat with Greg, and he and I have very similar ways of thinking, and we immediately just got along like a house on fire. And so through the freelancing side of what I was doing, ended up working at Nation Creative.
Okay, they offered you a full-time role.
Well, yeah, I was just there every week. I kind of started just rocking up and being like,
Did
hey
they
guys,
offer
you
you a
want something?
position, or did you just not leave?
Yeah, they ended up, kicking me out. They had security involved. No, and I truly loved working there. But that was actually something that, and I'm very philosophical and really believe in this whole, like, everything's meant to happen and all that cliche stuff, because it truly is. And this believing in myself and saying, you're not going to be great if you don't work somewhere that you're not passionate. Just take time, take a breather, let things happen. Really worked out, because the time that I spent at Nation probably gave me the most sound and I don't know how to describe it, but just my understanding of strategy, and in terms of how we communicate to people that see, so in the sense of creative, like how we communicate to people is really embedded in strategy, and how we identify brands and how we think about them, and just, you know, like just putting together an ad to sell something needs to mean something. And I think that was the biggest takeout of my whole time at Nation, was just having a really refreshed view on what strategy means for marketing, communications and brand and all of that. So until that point, it had felt quite retail and quite tactical. So working with the Nation Creates team was,
So they were solely on the creative copy side, or they schedule media as well, or?
Yeah, so they were founded based on the fact that they didn't think that, they sort of wanted to be a disruptor in the advertising agency sort of sector, and they built themselves on the fact that they do things differently. And they were sort of going through an evolution of becoming an ad agency that did creative and copy and servicing in the sense of media buy and TVCs and things, to really going that bit deeper. And understanding, well, you know, what are you trying to achieve? Like, who are you? What is your brand? What does it represent? Why do people want to connect with you? And there's a lot of, I guess, Simon Sinek feeling around that work in terms of like, find your why, what's your purpose, because that's really what people are connecting into rather than, these tactical benefits or features anymore. It's feeling more powerful connections. So they were going through this evolution of being like an ad agency to being more of a marketing communications strategy agency with creative output.
Okay.
And so that really reframed how I thought about that side of things as well.
Yeah. And so what was your role while you were there?
So project director, so I was working on different client needs. So it was actually nice to go on the other side in the sense of being the one that got the brief from the client instead of being the client. And was working really closely with the CEO in terms of how that side of the business was developed, and then working with him on clients as well.
Okay, so you were putting together the creative, or you were...
No, working on like the strategy and having the workshop sessions to find, so we would do the discovery sessions. Okay. So looking at how we unearth their purpose and their why, and translating that into a strategy that then connected into creative output.
Yeah. Okay. And so then from there, you obviously knew you wanted to get into sport from your experience with Clipsal and the supercars and everything. Then you got a lot of experience through like this, the new place at Nation.
Yep.
And then from there, you found yourself in the SANFL?
Yeah, in Sandford, yeah.
How'd you manage to find yourself there?
Well, I guess it was, like I said, I was waiting for the right role. I was waiting for the industry that I wanted to be working in, which was sport.
Yeah.
So, and obviously I was really transparent with Greg about that. And
I'm jumping ship. As soon as I find something, mate, I'm
He's like, God,
here.
I cannot wait. You've been hanging around. We didn't need you for another 4 months. But
we haven't even paid you. What are you doing here?
It was such a cool office as well. Certainly. So when the role came up, I probably knew that the actual role was probably a little bit junior to my experience and to what I was wanting, but I knew that it was a great entrance into the sporting industry.
In particular football, or you didn't really care which sport?
No, I wasn't exclusively looking at football. I think I grew up in a soccer family, so AFL was probably a little bit foreign, and none of my family even knew when I got the job at Collingwood. My mum was telling everyone she knew that I got a job at Collinswood. So that's like what we're working with here.
Your marketing needs to start at home.
Honestly, the soccer market is what we'll go for next. No. So I grew up in a soccer family, so I actually thought that I would be best suited to soccer because I just knew the game, I'd played it. But certainly wasn't exclusively looking at any particular sporting code. So footy just ended up being the one, and Sandford, it all worked out. And
because the role there was brand communications consultant.
That one was digital marketing coordinator.
Officer. Yep.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Seems like forever ago.
Yeah, and so you thought at that time you really took I don't know how to put this, like maybe
it was like an adjacent step.
But you realised you were happy to do that to get into something you're passionate about.
Yes.
Because your true skills wouldn't come out unless you're actually passionate about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, that makes a lot of sense.
And I think, I was just excited for a new challenge in terms of like the application as well. I'd done obviously motorsport, and I knew that, and not of course that I knew everything, but I was keen to sort of cut my teeth on something new. And I sort of don't like limiting myself to trying to think too far ahead about what can and can't happen. And I always like to think quite positively and sort of think, well, who knows, if I make a really good impact from this job, you just don't know what they're going to want to, promote you or expand your scope of work, or you just don't know. And certainly like the interviews were so much fun. Like everyone was just so nice, and I just knew that the culture fit was going to be great.
Okay.
And that it was a really good entrance point to understanding a new world.
So I'm coming at this from a completely different view, right? Or my experience. So I literally did my undergraduate at UniSA, then I did honours, master's, PhD, and now I'm a research fellow there.
Yes.
And then I looked at like your CV and I'm like, you've been at a lot of places. And your experience is the opposite to me. You're very good at what appears to be moving to new environments, becoming quite comfortable, building good relationships, thriving in that environment, and then finding a new challenge.
Yes.
Do you think that's something that has worked well for you?
Absolutely. There's one thing, and I'm almost becoming a bit preachy about it. I think everyone at work's almost getting a little bit sick of it. Only 11 months in. No, they're not. They're certainly putting a polite face on anyway. But no, I think self-awareness is the best asset you can have. And it's not even just, like, oh, this is who I am and this is what I like. But it goes beyond that. This is how I operate. This is this is the way I like to receive information, or this is the best way I build relationships. And I think that has been integral for me in the sense that it's happened for me professionally and personally. And I think you have moments where you have to reflect on who you are and what you can and can't change about yourself.
Okay.
And I think that is the most... Yeah, it's just it's the best asset, because you're then very clear about what you want, and I guess you're not defined by what you are not. You are just sort of very strongly, I don't know how to word it. It's just empowering when you believe in yourself and you understand yourself to be able to then make moves that might seem risky from the outside, and create connections off nothing, because you're just, this is who I am, this is how I go about it, and you don't need to factor in anything else, because you're sort of, I don't know, it's like the whole idea of don't be anyone but yourself, because they're all taken, or whatever, however it goes. And certainly I try to get a vibe for how other people operate, and I think I'm a little bit intuitive in that sense, so I'm probably a bit lucky to be able to then assess how I approach them based on how I work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I was just about to ask you, because I think, because I hear about you and your reasoning behind doing this, and that sort of thing is petrifying to me, right? Like, I love it. I love my office. I love the place I work. I mean, I'm fortunate that it's a job I'm very passionate about, and I have wonderful co-workers, and I'm at the forefront of my industry, so I'm pretty proud of that. But to me, even if it wasn't, I think I'm not that sort of person who just moves on. So is that something that you've always been, or is it something you've sort of trained yourself to do?
I think I've trained myself to do it.
Yeah.
And certainly I'd noticed in myself that the time it took for me to settle into a new workplace was getting shorter every time I started a new place. And I was like, okay, so this is becoming more and more familiar. And certainly I still get first day nerves. Like, I still get shaky. I still worry about everything. I'm certainly not exempt from that. But yeah, I think it's a little bit of training in the sense that if I want these things, and if this is what makes me happy, and where I feel like I'm making the best impact and having the most, I feel rewarded, then I need to get over these short-term feelings.
Yeah. Because
ultimately I'll feel better later, because that's what really makes me happy and gives me that feeling, that feeling of, I guess, trepidation only lasts for about 5 days now. Okay. And then I'm cracking jokes and making everyone laugh. So
that's pretty good. 5 days is pretty good. With all of these moves and, quite strategic moves, and you don't just on a whim just be like, no, I'm going to quit this job and something might pop up or whatever. They are very smart, calculated moves. Like, you haven't, or it doesn't appear from the outside that you're just winging it, for example. Now, the reason I bring that up is because, is this something that you, I don't know, for lack of a better word, consult with yourself? Or do you have mentors in your life that you're like, look, I'm feeling this way about my current role, or I'm feeling this way about what I want to be doing in the future, and then your solutions-based arguments. Do you have a mentor in your life? And you don't even have to name them. It's about just discussing whether they've helped you or anything.
I'm glad you brought it up, because I have about 6.
Okay.
So
I think you've taken the record so far of the people I've interviewed.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, certainly. And I think on paper and even as I'm talking about it, I probably sound much more confident and much more like happy to take risks than I actually am. I'm actually very calculated. That's a very good word to use, because and it comes down again to that self-awareness and everything like that, is just I know what I need to feel comfortable to take risks. And mentors are one of the best things that I've ever sort of engaged with in terms of my personal development and my career development, because I think the concept of a mentor is you inherently trust that person to give you feedback, whether it's good or bad. And I think that the best thing about that is that you, by engaging in that relationship, whether you make it a formal mentorship or an informal one, you are inherently telling them, I trust you to tell me bad things because I'll believe it.
Yeah.
And I think when you tend to go to people to problem solve as it happens and say, this is what's happened to me, my contract's ending in a month, I don't know what to do, it's quite superficial. And I think having someone that can sort of soundboard you, not necessarily solve things for you, is I literally wouldn't be in my position if it weren't for the record-breaking 6 mentors I have. So
I'll see if I can find someone with 7.
Yeah, and it's true. Like I'm really big on it again. Like the whole preachiness is really coming through now. I encourage it in everyone that that mentors are the most valuable thing you can do for your career because of the trust.
I want to dive into that a little bit. I mean, it's all about the trust, and they're very valuable. And I think, especially because of the half a dozen that you've got, do you use each of them are for different reasons?
Absolutely.
Or different areas of your life or something like that? And like I said, you don't have to obviously name these people, but it's more about trying to give everyone an understanding as to how you've best maximised the use of their time.
Yep.
Because, they're very busy, successful people. You don't ask a mentor who's not doing well.
True.
So how to maximise their time and how to maximise your ability to get from that relationship. So what are you trying to get from it, and how do you maximise that for both parties?
Yeah, well, I think it's about identifying something that they can help you overcome, or something that you see in them that you would like to emulate in yourself. So I have most of them are friends, but there's probably a few that are probably personal and professional mentors. And I say that because, and it's a female thing, I'm going to go down the gender thing. But
totally fine.
As a female that's trying to forge a very ambitious and driven career, there's obviously things that are factored onto that are personal. So I have 2 female mentors. Both are highly successful in very senior roles with businesses on the side as well. So that very, very accomplished, successful women. And just navigating the conversations around family and split between personal and professional life and things like that. So they've been absolutely fundamental for me in understanding how, what, when do I address things, and how heavy do I invest in my career, without sort of forgetting about my personal life as well. And so getting out of those particular mentors is that balance between personal and professional. And then others, it's just been traits or things that I think they can help me overcome. And certainly it's always been factored on the basis of the personality as well. Like if I think that they would be open to that sort of relationship. And just understanding what they can help contribute to me, and if they're just open to helping. So I think they're all just genuinely nice people. So regardless if they thought they could help me or not, I think they've just been nice and said, yeah, sure, I'll give you some advice. So
I think one of the things that people often feel with mentor-mentee relationships is how do they go about starting? Say they admire someone's career, or they love a certain trait within this person, or they feel like in your situation, how can I balance personal life with career life, especially for the role as a female? How did you go about establishing these? Was it a very excuse me, sir, or was it something that sort of just naturally developed?
Yeah, I think with each of them, it's been different. Like one of my mentors is a very, very good friend of mine, and I sort of just said to her in passing, I was like, look, I'm kind of treating you as a bit of a mentor personally and professionally. I hope you don't mind if I ask you a few questions every now and again, just about like keeping me on course and like really just soundboarding things. And then others, it's sort of been, it's quite organic. So I'm a big fan of internal mentors because I think that external ones are great because they can give you career advice from their point of view.
So you mean from your organisation?
Yes, yeah. But
Which is difficult for you because you...
move on a lot, yes.
Yeah.
No, well, just in terms of understanding the landscape you work in as well. And I think there's a general advice, which is kind of idealistic sometimes. And then there's realistic advice in terms of I understand the people you're working with or the project you're managing or the challenges you'll overcome, and I can help you from that really internal point of view. So one of my mentors was, I remember I presented a thing to exec, something that I had worked so hard on, and I sat down around the table when I presented it to the executive. And I remember after that meeting, I thought it went really well, was pretty happy. And this senior leader pulled me into his office and said, hey, I just want to give you some feedback. I think next time you present, you should stand up. And I was like, oh, okay. I hadn't even thought about that. And he said, look, your personality is so outgoing. You're so easy to talk to. You're funny. Like, you're very personable. You need to take serious moments seriously. And that has stuck with me ever since. Yeah. And so I said to him, thank you. I love that feedback. Can we make this a thing? Can we have like a mentor minute once every few weeks and just chat about things in terms of my career development, next steps, feedback about how I go about, becoming a senior leader myself. So there's sort of like a bit of a naturalness that I found with my mentors. The internal mentor I have now was a bit more formal. I sort of approached and said, look, this is a challenge I would like to overcome in my progression to becoming a senior leader within sport. And I think that this is something you can help me with. Can we work through this? And he was more than happy to, because I sort of presented the challenge as the purpose of the mentorship. So I think there's like, you just got to vibe based on who the person is and your relationship with them. And certainly the response will be based on that relationship anyway. So if it's formal, someone you don't really know, you're probably more at risk of them sort of feeling uncomfortable themselves with sharing advice. But with others, probably a little bit more natural.
Yeah. Feeling the vibe of the conversation and the person themselves as well. Because it can be quite a close relationship.
Yes.
In that sense, because they get to know you and I suppose your vulnerabilities in some sense, because you're really being like, this is where I need help.
Absolutely.
And exposing yourself in that situation and to be able to get that trust to be able to move forward. So you've had you've been across everywhere. I
feel like you're amping me up so hard, but that's good. That's fine. I can take that.
I think it's awesome. Across all of your different roles, like, is there a commonality between them, or like a challenge that you've really faced throughout it? Is there something there that you... I mean, you mentioned just a minute ago that you do find it quite different being a female, balancing your life and your career. And you are actually the first female guest, not by choice. And it's just a situation of whoever visited the Institute, if I'm honest. So is that something that you're quite conscious of? Because it's something I've never had to deal with, right?
Yeah, and I think, look, everyone has their own lifestyle, wants and needs and goals in life. And I think for me, a family has always been something that I've always wanted. But certainly I understand that I am not the sort of person that clocks in at 8:30 and at 5 o'clock every day and just treats my job as a job. I'm always going to be personally invested, and I certainly wear the wins and the losses on me. Like, it's not something I can sort of, as soon as I leave the office, I leave it all behind. So for me, it's a consideration about the type of partner I would need. So it's more about that sort of thing. So rather than seeing my investment in work as a negative thing, it's about going, well, the ultimate goal of a family is just, it's a nice thing based on the things that I actually enjoy in my life as a single person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So Yeah, it's not necessarily a challenge in the sense that I have to be really on top of any particular like topic or like, you know, the clocks are ticking or anything like that. And certainly it might be for others, but for me it's just more so about the balance of life.
Yeah.
So making sure that my work is not 100% of my life, which I struggle with, and sort of making sure I'm making time for hobbies and things to really relax and enjoy the other side of life.
Yeah, to still be a person and a
Yeah,
human
exactly.
being.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Which I think the line is harder when you are invested in what you do and you're passionate about what you do and you want to contribute and make impact, which I know everyone does, but there's different levels of it. And for me, work is not just something that pays the bills. It's something that gives me joy. So
Yeah, I agree. I'm probably more in your mindset for that sort of thing because we spend, a third of our waking lives at work.
Yep.
And I couldn't think of anything worse than doing something that I didn't care about, something I wasn't passionate about.
Yeah.
But I do, and I never used to understand people who had careers or jobs that they would just clock in at 9, leave at 5, and they couldn't care less.
Yep.
That's not who I am.
Yeah.
I don't understand them, but they don't understand me or you either.
Absolutely, yeah.
And but it is all about finding that balance and that. One of the things I'm sort of I guess struggling with at the moment, but I think it's a lifelong struggle, is this work-life balance.
Oh,
and
God,
you sort
it
of
does not exist. No,
you just
it
touched on it
Yeah.
a minute ago. And I've heard lots of different people speak about this, and it's one of the things that everyone always tries to make you conscious of. But it feels like it's something that people do struggle with when they do have that passion for their job.
Yes.
To pull away from it. And our jobs can follow us now because we
Absolutely.
have technology.
Oh, yeah.
We have a laptop. We have our phones that have our emails on them. People can call us at any time.
Yep.
And you said it's a struggle for you. Is there something that you do to pull it back the other way, or?
Well, I'm actually going through this, I call them growth pains at the moment. And it's 100% self-management. And this is something that I'm talking to a few mentors about at the moment, is that, and I realized just over the last week that I will never be the person that strikes a 50-50 balance between work and life. It's just never going to be that way. I've just accepted that I'm invested in work and it will always chew up more than half of my life, or half of whatever the percentage of the week is. So for me, it's more about what balance is sustainable for me. And for me, it doesn't need to be much. Sometimes just having a completely disconnected day of the weekend where I actually don't think about work or make sure I don't check my emails is enough to reset my brain to go, that's the balance I needed. I feel, rejuvenated and like I've had time away. So it's more of a mental thing for me than it is probably an activity-based thing. So yeah, and my brain is constantly on. So constantly trying to solve problems and progress things.
So is it Sunday? You just closed on Sunday?
Well, I'm currently watching the Marvel Universe in order.
Okay.
Of the storyline. So that's been chewing up a lot of my weekend. So I've been switching off well and truly for the past couple of months. But yeah, so it is. And even just recently, the weekend I just had, obviously we had round 1 of AFLW on Sunday. That was a full day.
Yeah.
And Saturday was out and about with friends. So I actually don't feel like I've had that mental switch off. So I'll make time for it this weekend, knowing that if I don't have it, I'll feel off. So yeah, for me, that's just, it's probably a little bit more, I don't know, superficial in the sense that I'm not really going much deeper, but I know that I just need a mental break to make sure that I can keep that going. But in terms of the actual investment of my life, in terms of work, I am working on pulling that back. So, and there's certainly no expectation at work to be that invested. They're all about flexi, which I know a lot of organisations are now, like working from home or flexible hours and looking after yourself. It's just that I just want to do so much and I want to do it quickly. So it's just recalibrating the brain to say self-manage, maybe give yourself 2 deadlines instead of 5 or 6. And be a bit healthier about that output.
I'm laughing.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, I can relate to that quite a bit.
It's a passionate person's problem, I think.
Yeah, and so I recently did, and they call it Early Career Research and Development Program. So it's run by one of the professors there, Pat Buckley, and every year they take a cohort of about 25 to 30 ECRs, and they run through every month or so they'll have sort of different themed days, and one of them was all about self-management and work-life balance, and they'd have examples of past students who'd done this program, or high achievers that are now mid-career researchers or late career researchers. And the question came up about work-life balance, and I kid you not a single one of them had it right yet.
Yeah.
And most of them, because they care, right? And so they're working most of the time. They'll wake up at 4 o'clock so they can exercise or do a bit of work before their kids wake up.
Yep.
And that's what they consider balance. Getting slightly less sleep so they can be a family man or family woman as well.
Yeah.
But they all didn't have the balance quite right, but they all had different ways of managing it. So that might be what the solution is about figuring out for you what's your maximum, what's your limits, and what you actually need to switch off. Is that what you think?
Absolutely. And I think it's always going to be aspirational in both what you can contribute to work and what you can contribute to life. You're never going to get the balance right. You're never going to be like, wow, I am just nailing effectiveness at work and I am just hitting everything. You're never going to get that. So I think it is just about ongoing management and just being realistic that sometimes you're going to get it wrong, sometimes you're going to get it really wrong, and sometimes it's going to feel like you're on the right track. So I think it's just not being too harsh on yourself either, and just really self-managing what you need from both sides as well. Yeah. So if it is that little bit hour, like less of sleep, so that you can do the things that you enjoy and you feel like that's the right balance, then that's just what it is.
That's what they were doing.
I need more sleep, so I will not be doing that.
Yeah, sleep's important. I try to go to the gym straight after work, and that gives me that little mental break, I suppose. I mean, it's very difficult to think about your research when you have, lifting weights. You're going to hurt yourself.
I was going to say, you probably deal with a lot heavier subjects in the brain, I guess, than I would. Mine's just constantly thinking about my to-do list, so...
I have a to-do list on my desk. We print out, we have my week emails. We send them out every week.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like, so what did we accomplish last week? And then what are we planning to do this week?
Oh, we do that too.
It's very effective.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes it's just like you get addicted to scratching them out.
That's a very, have you done your Myers-Briggs personality test before?
Yeah.
That is apparently a J thing. Being, if you're judging and not perceptive in that fourth character code. It's about get that satisfaction of ticking off something on your to-do list.
Yeah.
is very so satisfying.
Yeah, I was wondering at the end of last week, I was a bit grumpy on the Friday. I couldn't put my finger on it. I'm like, why did I feel like I had a bad week? And then on Monday, as I was writing my accomplishments, I was like, I didn't tick anything off.
It's
all
just
the tasks
there.
are too big.
You know what you might need to implement is something that I literally started maybe 2 weeks ago, Marvellous Mondays.
Marvellous Monday.
Marvellous Mondays, no meetings.
No, that already stuff up. Every week it's like Monday morning at 9:30 we have a meeting.
Maybe you need Fabulous Fridays instead. I'm all about alliteration. It's literally, so my thing is traction as well. So in terms of that self-management, it's actually about your workload. And my thing, I love being helpful. I'm probably too helpful. So then I overcommit my time. Yeah. I'm in a bunch of meetings all the time, and then my actual output in terms of the work that I'm actually doing gets compromised because I'm constantly just pulled from different meetings, which I love. I love helping people, but also I love doing work. So yeah, Marvellous Mondays is a new thing for me. No meetings. I just sit there, churn through work, and my mentality for the week ahead is just so much. I couldn't even articulate how much better I feel about the upcoming week. I could have back-to-back meetings for the rest of the week and still feel like I've done better because I'm ticking off so many things on the Monday that it almost sort of makes the productivity of the week feel much higher regardless of what actually happens.
No more meetings on a Monday.
No more meetings on Monday.
Yeah.
I don't know how I communicate that externally.
I'm all right with that. How about no more meetings for Tuesdays or Wednesdays?
How far can you extend it? Yeah.
There's that internet meme. It's like, when an hour meeting should have just been an email.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's another one. I'm all about reading about these sort of methods for feeling more productive or being more efficient or managing your time better. Obviously, it's a current thing for me. And the former CEO of Westpac, I believe it was, mentioned that she only scheduled meetings for 15 minutes or 45 minutes. There was never a half hour, an hour long meeting. And so that made her workday so much more freed up, because it was either, is this worth a significant amount of time, like 45 minutes, or is it a 15-minute debrief, catch up, whatever it is? And I actually mentioned it to my boss, and it's now becoming a thing in our department.
Wow, that's awesome.
To be more effective. And it does make a lot of sense, because if you schedule a meeting at say 2:15 to 3 o'clock, and then you have a 3:15, you've got that 15-minute window buffer to debrief and to actually do a few things. Whereas, meetings when you're in back-to-backs and they're all hour long, you don't get that break to even mentally just go and get a drink of water and take a walk, or like a quick sort of mental break. So, I'm trying to find different ways of managing my work hours as well, to just make me feel better about my contributions. So
You find that because like either I travel for seminars or whatever, or we're delivering some webinars lately, and I always find this. It's like, the meeting will start, say, hypothetically at 3 p.m.
Yep.
For me with them, or my presentation or whatever, and you see people showing up at like 5 or 10 past, and you can never be upset with them, because they've just come out of an hour meeting at 3.
Absolutely.
And they're probably on a different floor of the building, or they need to go to the bathroom, or they need to grab a drink, or they need to go.
Like, wow, that was a heavy meeting, or there's so many actions. Totally. So, and I'm pretty sure the principle was that it was never scheduled on the hour. So it was always 3:15 or 3:45.
So it was always scheduled differently as well.
So that you always had that sort of that gap in between. So, a bit of LinkedIn reading.
It's really interesting. I had to look that up a bit more.
Yeah.
So you did an undergraduate degree. Mm-hmm. So you know a little bit about academia, but you're very heavily industry focused.
Yes.
Do you rely on any academic knowledge now, or since you've left the university, or do you keep up to date with it? So there is sports marketing journals, for example. Are you reading these?
In a perfect world, I would have more time to read more, because in the same sense that I'm finding articles that are sort of suggesting new ways of, time management or whatever it might be, I actually wish I had more time to commit to reading it. So no is probably the answer. I probably am more industry focused. So we have a lot of industry, reports and newsletters that come through about probably more tactical campaigns and things and results from that. And it's certainly a way that we're moving forward as a team, is focusing more on, what sort of information is out there that we can interpret to apply, rather than looking a little bit too closely. I think so. Yeah.
And because academic journals are not really written for industry.
And especially when you're 100% invested in your work life.
Yes.
When you go home, you just want to watch Love Island or something trashy. So, and I probably don't have the brain capacity to understand, something that's a scholarly article.
Yeah.
I just want to turn off and not think for a little bit. So, but I'm big advocate for taking like cross industry, sort of results and I don't know what the word is, but just like absorbing learnings from outside your own industry and seeing how they apply to yours. So we're probably looking a little bit lower. And personally, that's me as well, looking at actionable things rather than concepts or ideas. But,
Yeah, I think
does that upset you?
No, not. I don't work in sports marketing.
Okay.
But I think that's kind of one of the reasons that people like the Institute, is because our role is to read that stuff, digest it, and then give deliverable content.
Yep.
Is there anything like that in the sports marketing world?
I think the degree and the fact that the Institute was sort of very heavily involved in what I learned and how I learned it probably just primed me in terms of the way I operate and the way I think about things. So, very much focused on, like data and numbers, I think, and proof points. I don't like to do things because it just feels right. Like it's a way of thinking and an approach, I think. I think I'm really keen to do more investigative research, because I think sports is probably the one thing that has never really had to work too hard to be popular or to be, the awareness and things like that. It's an enjoyable experience. So you never really had to work too hard. Some sport codes and teams might argue with me on that one, but the general feeling is that that's how it's been. So we've never really had to think about all of the numbers and the things going on behind it. Outside of traditional things like revenue numbers and things like that, in terms of like broadly marketing metrics and that sort of thing.
What about that?
It's kind of more experiential, and I think it's always been more conceptual than it has been about the gritty numbers and being really scientific about it.
Yeah. Okay. It seems there might be a bit of a bridge there that needs to be crossed at some point. So there's a guy called, he's currently at RMIT, so probably just down the road from you, actually.
Probably.
And he was at Swinburne. His name is Heath McDonald.
Oh, no, he does. So we work with Heath, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say.
The AFL and sporting clubs work with Heath in terms of broadly, like a lot of research and feedback, probably in the membership space, I would say.
Yeah.
I can't speak on behalf of him in terms of what he actually works on, but certainly what I've been exposed to has been in that space, in sort of the membership and behaviour space.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because I think because his work is quite good in terms of he seems to be applying some of the patterns that the Institute's known for.
Well, there you
he
go.
has that connection.
And he works closely with Dr. Adam Karg as well, who he's probably the one that I've had the most face time and exposure to. So they together, I think, have had some good research, and they've done a lot of modelling.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I've not spent enough time with those two, or even just Adam. But yeah, we've certainly seen that.
Where's Adam based?
One of those universities
so it might be at Swinburne.
Yeah.
RMIT.
It's been a while since I've looked at
I'll ask
their
around.
stuff, but
I have to have a look at his research.
So I'm probably undermining a whole bunch of people in our industry that are doing all this scientific work, and I'm just ignoring them. But no, certainly from what I've been exposed to, my roles in sport, it's not something that's been the primary focus or the primary talking point. Is around the scientific nature of how we approach marketing. It's probably been more focused on traditional business measurements in terms of like revenue and things like that. Not to say that it's not valid. I think it's totally valid. We probably just haven't had that. We've probably been like, that's an FMCG thing.
Yeah. So how do you then pick up on, I don't know, latest trends that are going in sport, whether it's Australia or globally? Are there conferences that you attend or organisations that you're a part of that sort of keep you up to date?
Yeah, well, there's league industry, a whole bunch of different conferences and networking opportunities, and certainly from league point of views for netball and football, they're really keen on showing information and making sure that they're providing us with the best information and practices and ways of working. So we do get exposed to that a lot, and I think there's a lot of it around. And I like to sort of think a little bit differently. I again, don't like going down the beaten track and doing what is expected. So I prefer to think about, like merchandise sales and things like that, and looking at what e-commerce businesses are doing. And going, well, what are they doing that's working for them? Can we adapt that to what our operation is, rather than going, what are sport doing for selling merchandise? So probably a little bit different in that sense, and much more want things that are working already.
Okay. So you look outside of your specific industry.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I think is pretty healthy to do.
Yeah. And that's just interesting as well, because I don't know, I think agility is key. You kind of can't just expect that the same things are going to work forever. And especially with sport, like you can't expect that it's going to be the favourite way to spend time forever as well. So how can we make sure that we're doing the best things in the areas that we're connecting to customers, because they're experiencing e-commerce. So when we're selling merchandise, we should be looking and feeling like, their favourite clothing store or something like that.
I think that's really interesting that you just said that, because it just made me think about your competition, right? Because it's not other clubs in a sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the research, but I think the reason people would change supporting football clubs or maybe adopt a second one is moving state, because it's difficult to then follow your team if you're not in the state.
Yep.
But you're actually competing for time.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so your competition is other activities as well, including sitting on the couch.
Absolutely. And it's something that I've had a lot of conversations with different people about as well, like both internally and externally, is just that the future of experience, regardless of if it's sport or music festivals or whatever it is that FOMO is the main driver of behavior. And I'm just speaking out of, what I am feeling. There's no data behind what I'm saying. But the commitment is like the biggest issue, and it probably plays into your loyalty stuff in the FMCG sort of space. But like commitment is the biggest challenge for us, is like we can't expect that everyone will want to spend every home game that we have with us every single time. That will not be a behavior that is sustainable. So what does that mean? And that's certainly why I like to think outside of sport, to go, well, how are other people navigating this challenge? How can we set ourselves up in the way that navigates that? And that's where my interest lies, is in that sort of the research around that sort of behavioural, what are we expecting moving forward? And I don't think that's unique to experiences. I mean, it's unique to people and their feelings, but we see it in dating now. Like, it's almost like dating is gamified. So commitment, like, I don't know, I'm 30 years old, so I'm speaking on behalf of me, but like, even the fact is, like, people are afraid of committing because there might be something better, because it's so easy to find something better. So why would people say, yeah, I'm going to come to 10 or 11 home games and I'm always going to be there regardless of the day and time, if they can find something else to do so much quicker that they might perceive to be a better, exactly what you're saying, a better use of their time.
And because you are committed, like if you don't attend, like, because I can't make the first game for the season against Sydney, I am a little bit sad about it, but I'm still paying for it.
Yeah.
And so I could on-sell my ticket, but that doesn't feel right. So I usually just give it to a friend or a family member and they'll go in my seat. But I'm still committed to the game. And I think clubs have tried to address it with sort of 3-game memberships. So you're kind of like dipping your toe in. I wonder if there'll be any moves towards like 6-game memberships or something like that.
Well, look, I think the world is kind of our oyster, and I'm speaking broadly in sport, in the sense of until we have someone that can prove there's sort of your behaviour or ways of predicting how this is going to go, everyone's going to try things until it seems right and it works for them. And I think, my guess is that sport in itself will be, the ways in which you can interact with it will be so proliferated, because we'll have to be available at every single point in time on the basis that someone will want to engage with us on their time, the same way that Netflix works. Like, you pay for the subscription because you want to have the access, but you want to be able to choose when you watch it and how you watch it, if that's your laptop or your phone or whatever that is. So I am thinking that that's the way forward for sport as well, is that actually going to the game on a Saturday at 2 p.m. or whatever it might be will become something that sort of seems inflexible to what is a generation demanding flexibility on their time.
It is it is holding strong for now, right? Because, and I think it's just true of all live events.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the reasons that, some shows still do have high audiences, is because it is shown live and you want to be part of watching it.
Yeah.
If you don't watch a game and you're like, I'm going to watch it later, and then you know the score already, well, you don't go and watch the game. And even if you do watch the game delayed and you don't know the score, it still doesn't have that sense of anticipation and excitement about it. So sport seems to have like this real ability to be able to hold that. How would sport become more flexible though? It's not like you can just get
I don't know.
these teams
Honestly,
to shot when you want.
If you can tell me, if you could research it and feed back to me, that would be great. But I think the one thing that makes it so unpredictable and so, like, you just become so curious about it is because it's emotive.
Yeah.
And how do you control emotions? Like, I honestly, that is the one thing that is I think that's the one compelling reason why sport has been consistent, I guess, for lack of a better word, but people are emotionally invested in the outcome. Is that everyone now that interacts with sport? I don't know. I know that we certainly have those people like yourself that are sad about missing round one because you like that feeling of feeling invested in some unknown outcome. and you don't know, the idea of not knowing what's going to happen is really compelling to sort of go, oh, I don't know how this is going to happen. It's a new season, new team, or whatever it might be. We've got these players in, and we'll see how they gel.
Yeah.
There's so many different factors.
Yes.
But they're so emotive. Like,
and you don't know how it's going to turn out.
And you can even the people that are like crazy with Supercoach and things, or whatever it might be, where they try and analyze everything and predict how things are going to go. Some games just don't work out. No. And I think the unpredictability is what is both the blessing and the curse for people like me who are trying to achieve, certain outcomes, because you just don't. And that's why people attend, I think, is because it's an emotional connection to the game, the outcome, a player or whatever it might be, or going with your dad or your mum or your kids to the game. It becomes an emotional experience. So how do you measure and predict that moving forward? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it'll be exciting to find out. And I think that's probably where my love of brand really connects me to sport as well, is the fact that there is power in sport in terms of it being emotive, but then how your brand can really play into that space. So how can you drive that emotion? How can you develop it in someone that didn't know or doesn't care, perceptively doesn't care? So how do you solve those challenges and get them to connect with you emotionally?
It's probably hidden away somewhere in a sports marketing journal.
Probably.
You'll
probably need to do some research, and I might actually be able to solve that one.
Send Heath an email. There's another guy. So just returning back to the concept of sport competing, not just against. I mean,
Yes.
I don't think they compete just against other sports. It's not like, as football, I'm competing against soccer, I'm competing against cricket, I'm competing against tennis, but like I'm competing against concerts or going to a movie. Or there's a researcher in London. He's from Kingston University. His name's Chris Hand. Yeah, so he's had a look at this as well. It's kind of like competition for leisure time.
Yes.
And it is very predictable, right? Based on things that we see in consumer good markets, like the same patterns, double jeopardy, duplication of purchase.
Yeah.
The loyalty towards these activities and the competition between them is predictable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you have some research to do now.
So it hasn't been done in Australia though yet.
Yeah, okay.
I can't remember the exact data that he used, but it's an interesting paper. If you remind me, I can send it to you.
Yeah,
it's one that would
please do.
actually be worth reading.
Yeah. I'll make sure I switch off my brain or switch on my brain after work for that one.
Yeah. I just read it through work hours. That's work. So I think it's totally fine.
R&D or whatever you call it, yeah.
So you've got season 2020 coming up. By the time people listen to this, it'll almost be over.
Yes.
I don't know, how much can you share about, like, do you have exciting things for this year? Or what have you learned from last year? Or
Well, I think for me personally, I am really excited about 2020, only because I'm feeling really good about where I am and the impact I can have and the trust I have and the relationships I have. So I'm excited personally about the things we'll be able to deliver this year, and the business, the team, everything. So I'm excited about that because I think I don't know, there seems to be a good energy around the projects we're working on, the vision we have for how we're speaking to customers and the sort of insights we're getting from them. And yeah, I'm broadly excited. I don't want to share too much in case it's all. But yeah, certainly I'm excited about the growth I'll see in myself and the exposure I'll have to new projects as well. So
yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah, so hopefully it will be all good things.
We've spoken a little bit about sort of the things that have happened in your career and how you've entered industry and then how you've progressed while you've been there. What would your advice be to, I suppose, I guess two groups of people? So one of them would be younger people who are looking to make that bridge. So they've, fresh baby face, just finished their undergraduate, want to cut their teeth on a new job. What would your advice be for them in terms of getting their first position? Because that's quite often a question I get from the undergraduate students. And then the second question would be, about how they should go about maximising those opportunities and leveraging them to grow within that organisation.
Sure.
Or to then use that to get a position maybe in an industry they're more passionate about, like you did with the sports?
I think the entrance into marketing and a marketing role is always going to be difficult just because of the fact that it's an entry-level role and it's, you know, there's the volume of applicants is always going to be high. But I would encourage a fresh-faced marketer to just give anything a go. Okay. And I think don't be afraid of trying something that doesn't necessarily look like marketing, because oftentimes it does, or it factors into, or you get exposed to how marketing can improve or be better utilized across the business, not just in the marketing team. So communication and things like that. So I think, yeah, don't be afraid to try something different, and be open to everything. Big fan, of course, of the right thing will land with you at the right time and it will teach you what you need to be taught. And then I guess leveraging that, I think just, especially when you're starting out, you're just learning. You're trying to find out what works for you, what doesn't, and what you're good at, because you probably don't know yet. You don't know in a real life marketing scenario what you're actually good at. So just give everything a try and don't be afraid to change your mind and sort of go, you know what, I thought that maybe I would be a better management marketer in a like financial investment area, and this is where I want to be, and trying that and going, actually, I really dislike that. I think that's the point, is to try everything, give it a go, and just learn about yourself constantly be open to evolving and being agile about what you're good at and who you are and your impact on a business. And I will continue to do that. Will I be in marketing forever? I don't know. I know that my skills are what my skills are, so I will let my evolution go with that rather than what I think I am skilled at, which is marketing. So I think, and just leveraging opportunities, like understand that not every business can do that for you, and it's not a reflection on you and your skill or your ability or anything like that. It's just business. So if a particular organization you're currently at maybe isn't able to give you the opportunities you're looking for, the challenges you're looking for, decide what you need and decide what you are happy with as well. So big fan of not sitting in the rocking chair. Like, don't rock back and forth and go, oh, I don't like this, I'm not getting what I want. Decide what you want, ask the business for it and rationalize it. And if they can't give that to you, then make an actionable decision to say, well, this is what I need. So I'm going to make the decision that I need to find a new role or something like that. So yeah, I think it's just being aware and open about expectations so that the business knows what you want, so that they can either help you or tell you that they can't. So
yeah, just be open.
Absolutely. And I think that's just being vocal about, what your next step is, because then you're just trusting other people to help you with that.
So do you, you're very busy and, like me, you struggle with your work-life balance.
Yes.
Do you find opportunities to read? Do you have any marketing? Do you read any marketing books, for example, that you find are very useful for yourself?
Probably not marketing ones. I'm always on my phone, so I don't like the physical book. That's one of my goals for this year, is to actually read physical books more. But I'm big on the Harvard Business Review. Like, I don't know what it is about that, but I feel like it's retargeting me now because I visited it a few times. But that is I'm constantly reading that for probably more broad business articles, and I'm subscribed to, I think it's Marketing Magazine. Is that one of them?
Yep.
But yeah, just time to read it is very low. So I'm more of a phone scroller, bite-sized articles, seeing if it's valuable or not, and then going back to my Twitter feed. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense though. I think a lot of people would probably be more like that.
Yeah.
Where, we are so busy, and if we can fit 5 minutes as we're waiting for a bus or something like that,
absolutely.
or there's a few minutes between a meeting.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, what's Twitter got to tell me? Like, what articles show up in Twitter? And then if that
true.
grabs you, you're like, cool, I'm going to read that. And maybe it's a 2-3 minute read.
And mine's waiting for dinner. Like, if I'm making dinner, I literally go onto Twitter, and because I follow a lot of industry accounts on that, and that's usually where I get my information from.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's very millennial of me, but
Yeah, and you can sort of follow the people that you are interested in their opinion anyway.
And I think, and certainly that's much more of what I'm finding myself doing now, and specifically on LinkedIn, is like Ariana Huffington, Simon Sinek. I'm sure there's other personalities that I like the way that they think and the sort of conversations they're starting as well. So I tend to follow those, like thought leadership. They're sort of the ones that I'm interested in, and I will read across, on my phone. Those
bite-sized 2 to 3 minute things, like giant 1 to 2 hour long podcasts.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what the YouTube channel's for. Just the shorter cut down clips, and it tells you exactly what it's about.
Exactly.
It all works out.
Exactly right.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
I hope that was valuable.
Oh, it definitely was. So a question that I normally ask people as they're sort of leaving is, what would your advice be to people? And I know you've only lived 30 years of life, and some of the people that I've interviewed have lived 60, 70 years of life. But given that, you are a bit younger, so it might be a bit different, what would your advice be to everyone else? Like, what sort of mantra do you have, or what do you think that they should take with them? What are your parting words for our audience?
Oh, gosh, pressure. I wish I had thought this through.
I formed you up for a while.
I'm full of cliches, and now I can't think of one of them. I guess my advice, just broadly to people.
It could be anything to do with work or life or family or friends or how you see the world.
I think, and my mum's great for advice, the one thing that's probably stuck true for a long time for me is control what you can control. And it's boring and it's basic, but that's probably it. If you can't, like the same thing, like leveraging growth in a business, you can't control if they're willing to grow with you or give you what you need. So just control what you can control, and that's how you respond to things and how you how you operate.
Control what you can control. Yeah, that's one you can ponder on for a while, isn't it?
That's like a cup of tea in the corner, just thinking for about an hour or two.
I mean, it's very short and concise, but it's like,
Probably not even saying, but yeah, it's, and look, the context behind it, probably my mum's sick of me worrying about everything all the time, so she used to say, Karina, just control what you can control.
Yeah.
Can you control that? Then don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
And probably the more sophisticated way of saying it is, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't spend more than 5 minutes worrying about it.
Definitely true. Awesome. Thanks again for coming in.
No problems. Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, it's Zac Anesbury here with just a couple of quick reminders. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, then make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. There are plenty more interviews to come with some of the world's leading marketing academics and practitioners. You do not want to miss these. In the meantime, if you're looking for another way to connect, then follow me on Twitter at Zac Anesbury. That is ZACANESBURY for my take on the marketing issues of the day.